Hey, what's up everybody? Thanks for watching today's video. My name is Joel. I'm a 20-year freelancer, and every single Tuesday, I answer your questions from the comment section. Today we're talking about how much revenue you should keep back from your earnings when you get started. Very important question, and the answer's coming up. That's right, if you're new to the channel, my name is Joel Young. I've been a freelancer for over 20 years now. I'm a top-rated seller on the platform Fiverr.com. I run a business called Jumpstart Video, and every single Tuesday, I answer your questions right here. So if you have a question, leave it for me down below. I will look at every single comment. I respond to most of them. I'm glad you're here, and I want to make sure you know it. This week, I'm only covering one question because it's a really, really good question. It's something that most freelancers don't bother to ask, and we're going to talk about the answer to this question for those of you that are full-time freelancers or maybe want to be full-time freelancers, and those of you that are part-time, side hustle, side gig freelancers, because there's both sides of the coin out there, right? There are people that do this for a living all day, every day. Maybe they want to do it for a living, and there are some people that only do this as a side gig in the evenings, on the weekends. They're trying to get out of debt. They're trying to earn extra income, supplement their income, whatever it is, whatever their desire. All kinds of different freelancers out there. So here is the question that we're going to be answering today. It's from our user or viewer, Henzala. Henzala asks, in the beginning, so when you get started, in the beginning, how much revenue should you keep and how much should you reinvest back into your business? This is such a good question. So I thought we'd spend the entire video talking about just this one question. And the answer is not simple. That's why we're going to spend our whole video talking about it. The answer depends on where you're going, what kind of business you have, and what your goals are. But the first mistake that many freelancers make when it comes to a question like this is that they simply look at all of their revenue, that is the money coming in from the work that they're doing, and look at it as their income. They look at, let's say, the proceeds of a $400 project. Maybe it takes you a whole week and you finish a $400 project. Yay, I just made $400. No, you didn't make $400. Now, all this advice is for those of you that live in the U.S., because I live in the U.S. and I don't really know the rules for taxation and things like that in other parts of the world. But essentially, in the U.S., when you make money, you don't get to keep all of it. You pay what's called taxes to the government. So let's just say, depending on what tax bracket you're in, you're going to pay somewhere between maybe 15 and 30% if you're a higher degree earner, maybe a little more if you earn a lot, several $100,000 a year. That percentage of your earnings goes to taxes. And when you're a freelancer, that is not removed from your check. So at your day job, most employers, if you're a W-2 employee, are pulling out your withholdings, your taxes, your Social Security, your FICO, and they are sending that to the government on your behalf so that you don't spend it. As a freelancer, when money comes to your hand, the first thing you need to do is separate out your taxes. So look it up, go to the IRS's website, look at what tax bracket you will be in, depending on your earnings for the year or your estimated, and pull your taxes out. So for just general purposes, I always say take 25% out to start. Most people are going to be at 25% or below. Only high income earners need to really dig into it and set aside more from that. But it's a good baseline to set aside 1/4, 25% of your income for taxes. And when I say set it aside, I mean set it aside. Take it away from your checking account. In fact, you should probably, before you start a business, have your own little business checking account, even if it's just a DBA account, also known as a doing business as account. When I started out, I was Joel Young, DBA, blah. I had like 400 different DBAs before I actually started a business and became incorporated. But have your own account, separate this out into maybe a savings portion. Take that 25% and put it away for taxes. If you earn enough, you need to pay that to the government quarterly. If not, you'll owe it at the end of the year, but you'll have to save it all from what you earn. So if you make money, you need to set money aside. That's the first place I would put my revenue if I were you, and I do. I save my taxes off to the side and I pay every single quarter. So I make sure I don't get behind. Trust me, you do not want to owe the IRS money. So that's the first thing you need to do. Then once you have, let's call it the other 75% of what you've earned, then you can really start to say, okay, what do I spend? What do I save? And why? And here is really the heart of the question. And we're going to ask a series of questions to answer this questions answering a question, because it really depends on what kind of business you have, what kind of expenses you have, and what kind of needs you will have ongoing. So the first thing you need to ask yourself are, what are my regular ongoing business expenses? So let's say, for instance, you have a license that you have to pay for a software. Maybe you're a graphic artist and you have to pay a software license every month. That would go into your ongoing expenses or costs to run your business. You obviously would want to keep that money on hand so that you don't run out and can still actually provide the service you're providing. Most people who provide creative services as a freelancer won't have any costs, but let's say you're a painter. You're going to have to go and buy paint. That's a business expense. You need to save enough so that you have enough to produce the end goods or services that you're going to get paid for. So ask yourself, what are my expenses? Write these things down. Make it a budget, not just for spending, but for regular expenses, the cost of running your business. Then once you know what it costs you to run your business, your expenses, you need to ask yourself, what do I need to live on? Now, you might say, well, shouldn't I ask about what I live on first? No, I think you should count your expenses first, because if you don't save enough back to perpetuate your business, then you don't have a business, okay? Then you don't have the ability to continue to do it in the future. So you need to save for those costs of doing business first. Then, with what's left, you need to say, what do I need to live on? If you're a full-timer, then you need to be asking yourself this in the scope of like, hey, what do I need to pay my rent? What do I need to eat? What do I need to put gas in my car, or, pay my electric bill? All these things. How much do I need? And then maybe how much on top of that do I want to have for spending money? Once you know what you need to live, then you can look at the rest. So you've got gross minus taxes, minus expenses, minus what you need to live on, and that leaves you a small piece of the pie that you then get to decide what to do with. And I believe the heart of Hanzala's question is, how much should I save or spend toward equipment upgrades, or saving back for an emergency, or promoting my business, things like that. There are a lot of different factors, but it's this small piece of the pie, after taxes, after expenses, after your income, that comes into play, where you're actually able to say, okay, here's what I'm going to save, here's what I'm going to spend. There are discretionary funds available. So the one thing I would encourage you to think about in the beginning, early stages, is what are your ongoing irregular expenses? Not the things that we would actually use or designate as the cost of doing business, your software updates, the things you need, the paint you need to buy if you're a painter, the things you need to actually do your business, but things you would like to have for your business. So for instance, when I first started as a voice actor, I had an old microphone and I thought, wow, one day it'd be nice to have a better microphone. I had some headphones that were pretty cheap. I thought, man, wouldn't it be nice to one day have studio speakers, studio monitors? And so slowly, as time went on, I saved up money to pay for those things. I said, oh, wow, wouldn't it be nice to have a new computer every couple years so I could stay at the cutting edge of technology and do my job well? These are not things that I pay out regular. They weren't things I needed to actually still create an income. They weren't daily expenses. They were irregular expenses and kind of wants or nice to haves for the future. And so I simply set out and said, what are those things? And began to slowly set money aside for those. This should be a very small portion of what you're earning. I would say if we're going to say 25% for taxes, maybe 25% for expenses, 25% you're living on, maybe bump that to 30 or 40% you're living on, then you save 10%. Now, these are all just arbitrary percentages and numbers, but you get the idea that you can't spend everything you make, and you need to be thinking about the equipment and the costs that you would like to use to promote your business or move forward. This also would include any kind of costs to grow your business that don't come out of your daily expenses, your regular expenses, things you need to keep the business going. But if you'd like to expand, maybe advertise, maybe get some marketing materials created, maybe hire somebody to help you with social media, things like that. That would come out of the bottom sliver. We'll call it the bottom 10% that you could use to actually make your life, your end product better, make your life easier, and make your business stronger. Now, the last piece of this puzzle that I'll throw in there that is not something most people think about in the beginning, but something you do need to think about as you grow if you're ever going to add somebody to help you in the business, and that is retained earnings, or otherwise known as a rainy day fund for your business. Now, if you're in personal finance, you should always have a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, in case your ability to earn an income goes away, like say from a worldwide pandemic, or if you're in the regular job world, this would look like losing your job. If you're a freelancer, this would look like not having enough clients. You would want to have an emergency fund set aside. In a business, we have retained earnings, which are similar to an emergency fund in your personal life. These retained earnings would cover several different purposes, and though not as important in the beginning, not as important if you're a side hustler because you have a 9-to-5 job to fall back on, but if you're a full-time freelancer, very important because there are going to be times of the year when business is not booming. You have to ask yourself, when are my slow times? Because if you spend all your income in the good times during the good months, and then you have a slow month, you have nothing to live on. Retained earnings help protect your business, shelter you from the storm. So if you had an employee that came on that you needed to let go and give severance to, that retained earnings would cover that. Maybe a contractor that you needed to buy out. Maybe, like I said, a time of the year when you just don't do as much work. Maybe you take holiday photos and the summer times are very slow. You should have retained earnings from your income, your gross income, your revenue that you're saving back for the lean times. So all of this is integral into building a really successful freelance business. I've seen so many freelancers who are good at what they do, who are actually doing a great job doing the work, but don't save or retain any of their earnings. They spend it all. Not only do they not consider taxes, but they don't consider the equipment costs or the expenses they're going to need just for tomorrow. They spend it all, and then slow times come and they can't eat. They can't buy groceries. They can't pay their rent. If you're going to freelance, you have to have a plan, and you have to be able to put that plan in action when the worst case scenario happens, and retained earnings will help you do that. So it would be my advice in the beginning to practice setting money aside. Start with maybe 10%. Maybe start with 20% or even 25% if you can afford it for that retained earnings, because that'll give you enough to hopefully live on, pay your taxes with, and pay your daily business expenses or your regular monthly business expenses with as you go on. So your business can continue to do its job, continue to do its work, do well, and even think about in the future about how we're going to get better, how we're going to grow while still sheltering yourself from the inevitability of some kind of downturn. Because trust me, if you think there's no downturn in sight, if you didn't learn this lesson during the COVID-19 pandemic, maybe your business actually shot up during COVID, mine did a little bit, then you're going to learn this lesson at some other point. Because if there's one thing that always stays the same, it is change. Change is constant, and your business will change. There will be times when you're more popular than others, times when you're able to sell your services with no effort, and times where you can't give your services away. So having all of these things in place, every single piece of this puzzle in place, it will allow you to survive to the next month, the next day as a freelancer. And in freelance world, though we don't really want to think about survival as our goal, the truth is survival is the ultimate goal of freelancing. If you're surviving, then you're thriving. Any business that's still alive and open and supporting you is a healthy business. A business where you struggle to even live certain parts of the year, you're taking out loans, borrowing money, losing cars or assets, people are repossessing your possessions, then you're not winning, you're not surviving. I want to see you survive and thrive over time by putting these things into practice, and it starts in the beginning. Even if you're just side hustling. Let's just talk to the side hustlers for a moment. This is how I started, in the corner of my bedroom, old microphone. I used to put a pillow under my chin while I did my voiceovers to keep the echo off the desk. Sometimes I would go into my closet with my clothes, all these, things that just janky little starts beginning. So I know I did it on the side, did it in the beginning, started at 6 o'clock at night when I got home from work, had dinner, worked oftentimes past midnight until one day it became my full-time thing. When you're starting, learn to do these things early. Learn to reinvest back into your business to make the business enjoyable, to bring your quality of operation and quality of goods and services up, but also save that money back. In the United States, it is imperative that you have a good accountant on your side, and accountants don't cost an arm and a leg for a small, simple business. For a couple $100 a year, you can get professional accounting advice. Don't do your taxes on your own. Maybe some of you can. I never have. I wouldn't advise it because there are so many things you can miss out on that maybe the couple $100 a year or, $1,000 a year you spend on an accountant would actually save you several thousand, several hundred, multiple times their weight in gold. Talk to somebody and get advice on what exactly you should be saving for on this logistical side of things, so that you can set yourself up. And then once that side hustle becomes the full-time business you want it to be, it grows to the revenue where you start adding team members. You have healthy habits. Successful freelancing is about healthy habits, doing things over time with great intensity and focus, because that equals success. I believe if you follow these rules, follow this model, and learn to save things early, then when you get to the point where you're being, quote, successful, whatever that looks like, whether it's a revenue number or an amount of work in your life or a lifestyle, you're healthy in that situation and can be proud of what you built rather than letting the thing that you've built strangle you to death and kill your joy, because I don't want that for you. So that's the answer to this week's question. Hanzala, thank you for asking this question. And like I said, if you have a question about freelancing, put it down in the comments below. I want to hear from you. I want more questions this week. I know you can do it. Ask me anything about freelancing. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've gone from a freelancer in the corner of my bedroom to a business with now 6 team members. So exciting. And I'm really excited to share what I have learned in the last 20 years of being a freelancer and growing it into a business with you all. I think it's helpful. I hope it's helpful. Let me know in the comments if it's helpful. Thanks for watching this video. And remember to leave me your questions down below. And as always, keep doing, because the future favors the doers.